Jesus and his disciples came to Jericho together with a large crowd. When they were leaving the city, a blind man, Bartimaeus, which means the son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard it was Jesus of Nazareth near him, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." And they told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called to the blind man, "Cheer up. On your feet, he's calling you." "What do you want for me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go. Your faith has healed you." Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. The word from the Lord in the house of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
We've been reading about Job, and we're finally going to be done with Job. He complained to God and said, "Why does this all happen to me?" And God said, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?" And now he's finally responding and saying, "I understand, God. I understand that everything you've given me, I need to be grateful for." And then it says he was restored everything tenfold. But he only got his three kids back, so it wasn't everything tenfold, just his money and his sheep and all of that kind of stuff. And we talk about Jesus being our priest. And the purpose of the priest in the Old Testament, in the olden days, was to make the sacrifices so that everyone's sins for a short period of time could be forgiven. And we're reminded that Christ is the high priest for all time. That his sacrifice of himself was greater than any other sacrifice could ever be. And therefore, there is no sacrifice that we can make that can come close to rivaling that which he made. Now, the rest of the gospel is about blind Bartimaeus, and I love blind Bartimaeus because it's such an easy phrase to put into a sermon. Just throw it out there, blind Bartimaeus, and it's already, you got half the message. Blind Bartimaeus sat by the roadside begging, and he was put to shame. Probably his father was too. But he had no other choice. He had no way to do anything to make a living or anything else. He couldn't see. But he had heard somewhere something about Jesus. And when he heard he was going by, he cried out and said, "Help me!" Now, if you haven't learned that prayer yet, know that that prayer, those two words, is the greatest prayer you'll ever need to know. Help me, Lord. Lord, help me. But those two words. Be willing to be humble enough to ask for help. Be willing to be humble enough to need help. He hollered, "Help me." Jesus said, "What do you want?" "I want to see." Okay, you see. The important part of that phrase then follows there is that he got up, his sight was restored, and he followed Jesus. He didn't go off by himself. He didn't go celebrating. He didn't go down to the bar and have a drink with the boys. He followed Jesus because his faith was what made him whole. But this isn't a parable or a story about someone who was blind, though I know some of the feelings. My father was blind for nearly 20 years before he passed. But he had a little bit of sight left from his macular degeneration. And he could see off over here in the distance. So if he wanted to see television, he had to get up beside it and look at it here, because straight ahead there was nothing. He was also deaf. And he told me once, when he was old, he was old for a long time, so he said, "I would give up the rest of my sight if I could have my hearing back." And Bartimaeus is so concerned about being able to see. And my father said, "You're in a world by yourself when you can't hear." So maybe if he had good sight, he wouldn't have been that way. But those who don't know him realize that he was over 108 when he passed away. So he was old for a long, long time. And he delighted in being old. He delighted in telling people, I'm 102, I'm 103, I'm 104. He wore it like a badge of honor. It also got him free dessert in a lot of restaurants. Bartimaeus didn't need to see Jesus to know Jesus was there. He already had enough sight in his heart to understand that his source of help was Christ. He simply shouted out, "Help me." And Jesus said, "What do you want me to do?" "I want to see." He wanted to see with his eyes. We need to see with our hearts. We can see with our eyes. I can even see you in the back row since I got my cataracts fixed. I can't read without them, but I can see you. And I know what you're doing out there. It isn't enough that we have vision. It isn't enough that we can see people, things, and so forth around. We need to be able to see Christ. And he doesn't focus well with our eyes. The focus on Christ has to be within the heart. The focus on our relationship with Christ has to be in our hearts. That's where we need to holler out to him, "Help me. Son of David, help me. I need to see you here. I need to know you're here." What did they tell him to do? Jesus said, "Call him." And they said to him, "Cheer up." Okay, everybody smile out there now. Come on. Stand up and come on down. And he could see, and he followed Jesus. We don't know whether he followed him here or just down the road where he could see the whole group going. We don't know. Our hope would be that his heart had opened up and his heart could see that where Jesus was leading him to. But our problem is that we get fixated on things. And we forget that Jesus is with us through everything we have. I asked the kids to be happy. What would make them happy? Why would they smile? Now, I realize that some of you have a bad shoulder and some of you have a bad knee and some of you have a bad attitude. Now, Jesus can fix the attitude with your help. He may not fix your knee and he may not fix your shoulder or your elbow or whatever else it is that's wrong, but he has the ability to let you see what relief is. Not pain relief, but relief from the pressure, the power of the sin of the world. I cannot imagine the horror of having someone walk through our door with a weapon. And we keep talking about doing something about it. Maybe we ought to. Maybe we ought to say to one another, "Help me." But we need to say to Christ, "Help me see with my heart because my eyes are blinded to what it is you really are in my life." Oh, I can see gathering together. I can see serving people. I can see, but unless my heart can understand, unless my heart can fully visualize what it is that Christ is calling me to do, I'm missing the boat. Oh, I don't have any problem cheering up. My wife will tell you I'm a pain in the... Lately, I haven't had any trouble standing up. Oh, there's one more part. I'm not sure how well I have come to Christ. But I know I want to follow him down that road, wherever it is he takes me, that my heart can lead me, that I can see him, because I'm blinded in my eyes. I can't see him. with my eyes, only with my heart. Blind Bartimaeus, I love the phrase. It's easy to say, and it immediately imparts a vision, and you can see him begging by the road. But can you see him with a smile on his face, following Christ wherever he would have him go? That's where you ought to be. Follow Christ wherever your heart will let you see. Amen. We look with our eyes. We seek with our heart. We seek that peace that passes all understanding, the peace of letting Christ be our priest forever, that we might know peace forever. In his name, amen.